Hello everyone, Festina here. In this video, we are going to discuss about the text input control in detail. So let's get started by adding a text input control onto the workspace over here. I'm choosing the text input control from here and let's add it onto the workspace. Users can usually specify data by adding or editing the text in the text input. Now let's start with discussing about the properties. The first one is text. Text property defines the text which is present in the text input. So right now you can see that it is written as text input. Let me show you how we can refer to the text in the text input. Let's go ahead and add a label and move that to the workspace. And in the labels text property, I'm just going to give the name of this text input, which is text input 2 dot text. And here you will be able to see the text which is present in the text input. The next property that we are going to talk about is the default property. Default is a property which tells us what needs to be in the text input by default before the user makes any kind of change in the text input. Let's say the app loads and I'm opening the app, and what is the text in the text input that's going to be there by default? Right now it is set to be text input, so we see that if I change it to test, I'll be able to see test as the default property. Now let us go ahead and configure this text input to get the name of a user. Let us remove that. I'm going to change the name of the text input to be more meaningful. So we have changed that to text input underscore name. It is always a great idea to add a label to a text input for giving more clarity to the user. So let's add a label over here and gonna rename that to username. Format has two options. You can either add a format as a number or a text. So if at all you're going to get a phone number or any kind of data field which has only numbers, you can go ahead and use the format as number. Or if you're going to use something as text, like your name, address, go ahead and use the text format. Right now, I have added another label and another text input, and this text input's format has been set to number. So let's go ahead and play this app. Let us enter the username in this text input. In the phone number text input, I will not be able to add any kind of text. I'm allowed to add only numbers. So let us add some number, for example. Make sure that users add data in the correct format by setting the format property. Next property is HintText. HintText pretty much provides a hint to the user about the text input. So let's go to the first one and choose the HintText property of this text input. And here currently it is not set to anything. I'm going to change the hint text right now. Let's say enter your name. This is going to be the hint to the user. Now I am removing this. So when the user initially looks at the app, here they will see a hint as in what exactly this text input is for. So we can utilize hint text to bring more clarity to the users. Also in the text input, there is a clear button. Clicking on that will actually give us a clear button and make it easier for people to remove the text that they have entered. I'm going to add my name in here, and you can see that a clear button has been enabled right now. So this helps us to easily clear the text that we have entered. And the next one is MaxLength. MaxLength is the property that allows you to define what is the maximum number of characters that a user can enter in a text input. As an example, let us go to the phone number, and here in the maximum length, let us give it as 10. Now I'm going to enter a number. So if I try to enter more than 10 characters, it does not allow me to add it. This way we can restrict the maximum number of characters for text input. The next property that we're going to talk about is the mode property of the text input. So there are three types of modes which we can set for the text input. And the first one is multi-line, and we have password, and we have single line. So multi-line mode can be used for text inputs like address, wherein we enter multiple lines of text. And single line can be used for text like name, title, or designation, something like that. And password is the mode which we use for entering passwords. Now, when I am trying to enter the password, you can see that it is masked and users will not be able to see it. So it is possible to add multiple lines by setting the mode to be multi-line. And username is a single line mode text input, so we can add a single line onto it. Next property we have here is the delay output. Delay output is a very interesting property. When you set this to true, what happens is the user's input is registered after half a second delay. So why this is used is because you may have some operations where you do a filter onto a data source based on the data provided in the text input. Let's say the user provides a product code in the text input, and we need to do a filter on a data source based on the product code. So it's a great option to set the delay output to be true so that there is a slight delay in registering the user input and going ahead with filtering the data source. The next property is enable spell check. When this property has been enabled, the text input uses the browser spell check function. So right now for this text input, I have set the enable spell check to be true. Let's go ahead and play it. And here let us enter a word as workspace. Now you see that it is fine. Now let's change the spelling to something wrong. Let's remove the K. And you can see that it shows the red squiggly line showing that there has been some mistake in the spelling. So this way you can enable spell check on your text input. Next property is strikethrough. When you enable the strikethrough property, what happens is there is going to be a strike through your text in the text input. So let us add a text over here as test address. And for this one, let us go to the strikethrough property and enable it, set it to true. And you can see that there is a strike through the text in the text input. Maybe for some scenarios, you might need this property. The next property is onChange. When we change the text in the text input, what are all the actions that need to be performed? We need to add all those in the onChange property of the text input. Same way, when I am clicking on the text input, that is, I am selecting the text input. If I want any actions to be performed, I need to add that in the onSelect property of the text input. And the next property that we have here is the display mode. So the text input can be in three different modes. It can either be in edit mode, disabled mode, or view mode. Based on some conditions, you can change the mode of the text input. When it is disabled, users will not be able to enter any data in the text input and they will be able to add data only in the edit mode. And the view mode is just for viewing the text input. You will not be able to do any edits on the text input. And the last one is the visible property. Whether you want to show or hide your text input is dependent on this visible toggle over here. Also, you can set conditions for setting the visible property. Maybe based on another controls value, you need to show or hide your text input. Next, we go on to the design properties, and these are all the radius specific properties. Let us click on a text input, go to advanced and search for radius. Radius property decides the degree to which the corner has been rounded for the text input. We have a radius for every corner of the text input. Let's go ahead and change the bottom left radius. I'm going to change this to 40. And you can see that there is a significant change here, and we can do the same for all four corners. It is always a great idea to refer to the properties and have the same values in other places. So I'm going to give in the keyword self, which refers to the text input itself, and we are going to refer to the radius bottom left. So you can see a change over here, and let's copy and paste the same to the remaining properties. By this way, you can see that the look and feel of the text input has completely changed. And we also need to take into consideration the color, fill, and border relevant properties of the text input. The four main color relevant properties are color, disable color, hover color, and pressed color. Color defines the color of the text input by default. Now, if I'm going to change that to orange, you can see a change in the color of the text input. And let us move on to hover color. This is the color of the text input when we hover over it. So when I hover over it, you will be able to see green. And then we have a disabled color. Disabled color is the color of the text on the text input when the text input has been disabled. And pressed color is the color of the text input when we click on it. So when I click on it, you can see that it shows a blue color. So these four properties are important when you are thinking about the text relevant properties. Same way you have the background fill relevant properties. So right now, the fill is the default background of the text input, and I'm going to set that to be black. And you can see that it has been changed now. And the hover fill is something about what is going to be the background fill when I hover over it. The pressed fill is the color of the background of the text input when we click on it. Let us take a look at the border relevant properties of the text input. Here you can choose the color of the border, the style of the border, how thick it should be. And you also have focus relevant properties. When a control is focused, how is it going to be? What is going to be the color of the border? What is going to be the thickness of the border? So these are all the properties which we need to keep in mind while designing a text input. I believe you got a good understanding of text input in this video. In our next video, we're going to talk about the drop-down control in detail. If you enjoyed this video, like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel to be notified on upcoming videos.